8th videotape, and I've done these tapes in memory of Tim Russert. When I was going to lipidology courses and Mr. Russert died, not much was made of how he was treated and the details of his case. I felt more could be said, and this was a golden opportunity to teach the public about what is available and what can be done. Instead, I heard that cases like this are inevitable. Well, there are 100,000 cases of sudden death outside the hospital every year, and my goal is with primary prevention to prevent it. Some people have asked, why didn't I have a better slideshow, PowerPoint? Well, in memory of Tim Russert, when he used a little board that said Florida, 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 I also want to deliver a similar, easy message. It's information, it's not style. This is the story, folks. It's statins, statins, statins. I know there are reluctant patients out there, and it's the reluctant patients that make doctors relax and not push for aggressive therapy. For the reluctant patient, I can simply point out that aspirin is available over the counter, and it is really the best treatment to prevent sudden death. However, 1 in 50,000 people bleed from this. This is a dangerous drug in comparison to statins. Statins, their road record shows 1 in 1 million cases, 1 out of 1 million people for cases of rhabdomyolysis. Also, people don't realize that Advil has a black box warning for stroke and heart attack ever since the Vioxx debacle. And for those people who like to take things over that are off-label, rather that are not reviewed by the FDA, when instead of taking Coumadin, you might go into the hardware store and say, oh, give me some rat poison. It's the same thing. Well, how much rat poison do you take? You have to understand that things that are not studied by the FDA, there really is no idea of how much to take or what you are doing to yourself. With that said, I think we must have enormous respect for these drugs. There is no such thing as a perfectly safe drug, and patients have to realize that when they take a drug, that there is no total guarantee. Baycol was a problem. Of course, it was used in high dose. This reminds me that Zocor in 80 milligrams is probably also an unsafe dose. Clofibrate was found to be toxic and had to be taken off the market, and Triparanol was a scandal. I'll let you look that up with Google. However, with that said, I still say to treat aggressively, find disease, and get their LDL particle number at least under 1,000, if not under 750. But monitor at least 3 times a year. Again, patients give us a hard time and want to come in once a year. I think this is a very big mistake. I see a great deal of hypothyroidism, which can lead to rhabdomyolysis. As patients get older, their renal function decreases, which can be a very big problem for Zocor or Simvastatin. Get the CPK if they have muscle pain, mostly to convince them that they are not having rhabdomyolysis and they simply need to cut back on the statin and try to work with it. Often I find that the vitamin D level is low, and I do this before I start statins to avoid the whole problem of muscle pain. Treating aggressively is not really what the guidelines are about. The guidelines are actually the minimum, the benchmark from which physicians should work. They give a great deal of leeway for the physician to use his judgment. My judgment is that if you have artery disease, as demonstrated in previous slides, then you need to prevent sudden death and to stabilize that plaque, no matter how small that plaque is. I would also like to see regression of plaque. As for guidelines, I would recommend looking at the ADA-ACC recent guidelines in March 2008, which recommend using ApoB levels or LDL particle numbers instead of simply using LDL levels. As my professors have said, guidelines are similar to the story in Ghostbusters. Bill Murray saw Sigourney Weaver as a client. She was possessed. She tried to get him in bed. He told her, it's usually a hard, fast rule of mine not to go to bed with people possessed. She takes off her dress. He looks. He says, it's more of a guideline. With that, let me go on to say that the new guidelines from NCEP ATP3 are coming out very soon. I think that, as it is often said, as soon as a guideline is made, it is often out of date. Another professor of mine said that he did a study, and the profession that has the longest longevity are physicians. They have access to health care, they take the medicine, they have access to it, they have access to taking their blood pressure. They live longer than anyone else. This is in contrast to the old days when they used to go around and meet everyone with infections before and antibiotics. However, this is not being done because apparently it costs too much. Well, since Iraq War and since the bailouts, I can't imagine there's not enough money to give people proper treatment to prevent strokes and heart attacks. Thank you very much for your time.